This is a question from Landon Hall, and she was asking about daydreaming. And her question is actually related specifically to this practice. In a do-nothing practice where you're not deliberately trying to be concentrated, is it okay to daydream? Because for she says it happens regularly for me, and if I allow it, it sorts itself out eventually. But I do have to allow it for some time. If I feel that even in the do-nothing practice that daydreaming is not kosher, then I feel confused and frustrated. I will say something here about the nature of daydreaming and the way we work with it in different practices. So daydreaming is fascinating. I actually have a chapter on daydreaming in the first book I wrote, The Head Trip. They call it task unrelated thought. It's and there's often you hear critiques of mindfulness saying, well, mindfulness is okay, but what about the fact that it seems to vilify daydreaming? It seems to say that just being out of it or daydreaming and floating is somehow not what we want. And that's not true at all. I mean, daydreaming is actually quite wonderful. It's a wonderful place of like creative ideas and new associations. And what's happening in a mindfulness technique is it's saying, okay, given that we're daydreaming a lot of the other time of the day, can we actually just have a place here where we're practicing being aware? So the thing with daydreaming is if you're doing a mindfulness practice, then the classic way you work with it is the daydream starts to happen. And you're like, oh, you notice it's happened. And you're like, okay, I'm in a daydream, and you come back to the breath or whatever. So it's sort of common sense. And the idea is that in all these subtle ways, we get taken away by things. We're always checking out of our experience. We're going over here, we're going over there. We're, in a way, we're not staying present with what's going on. So in that case, you want to notice anytime you get taken away, so you can then come back. But in a do-nothing practice, it's slightly different. In a do-nothing practice, exactly as, like you said, Landon, it's like you're just trying to exist at that point. You're just letting go of any agenda, and you're just saying, you know what, the main instruction is really, if you notice yourself trying to control your experience anyway, you just drop that control. So daydreaming will very often happens for people, and it's not a problem, so long as you're not feeding it. You just let the daydreaming kind of unspool. And if you notice that you're deliberately inside it, kind of keeping it going, that's where you might back off. But often what happens is, just in the way that Landon, you said exactly, as the daydreaming unspools, it's like it just works itself out. And then you can end up in this place kind of spontaneously of being very present and aware without ever having to try to get there. So in other words, the way to work with daydreaming and do nothing is to not make it a problem, but to just not feed it. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense.